The Kidnapped Bride. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing story which resonates with love, courage, resilience, and sacrifice. It is about an abducted Christian bride who was stolen by Muslim invaders from South Sudan and sold as a slave in Western Sudan. It has been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on similar happenings which occurred in southern and western Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 26. Baramilo. There is a type of work in Sudan known as Baramilo. It is a government job, and the worker receives his wages from the municipality. However, in Sudan, a woman may choose to work as a prostitute, and a man as a slave instead of being a Baramilo. The job requires that the worker participate in cleaning the city. It is not a simple hygiene task, or just cleaning the streets. Anyone in need can scrap shit from toilets or clean streets of garbage. But very few people will willingly agree to become Baramilo. 99% of Sudanese citizens would rather die of starvation than do this kind of work. It would be difficult to write a job description for a Baramilo in a few sentences, but a municipal government could tolerate any type of strike except a Baramilo strike. If the men of Baramilo were to have a strong union, which might be unlikely, and that union called a general strike, the whole city would be reduced to a foul-smelling public cesspools. This gives one an idea of the kind of social work that Baramilo brings to the city. It has also become clear that no other social work is more important to society than that of Baramilo. Although the nature of such work is now clearer, it would be difficult for anyone who has not lived where humans perform this function to fully understand how it is carried out in real life. Human waste, such as urine and feces, must be taken outside the city, poured out, and buried in large holes somewhere in the wilderness. How can people perform such an operation? Suffice it to say that the Baramilo is a professional work and a human art. If the worker does not do the job well, he may be killed or seriously injured. The Baramilo men must do their work either late at night or early in the morning, because the society fine ladies and gentlemen of the town do not wish to see or approach the Baramilo workers. Baramilo men, who are like untouchables in Hindu society, are not allowed to appear during the day and do their work. In India, the Brahmins, the highest caste in the Hindu religion, do not tolerate untouchables appearing on the streets who they consider may desecrate them by stepping on their shadows. Like bats, the outcasts must emerge from their slum huts only at night and search for their food like stray dogs. In Sudanese Islamic society, the Baramilo man has no such filthy element inherited through his karma, but no one can bear the stench that is generated when he performs his duty. Even dogs cannot dare approach the men of Baramilo. In general, it is an unenviable job. His presence at night repels all of God's creatures including mosquitoes and bats. Baramilo men use tractors to perform their duties. The tractor is attached to a long trailer that resembles a cabin on a freight train. The trailer carries a huge container, such as those used to transport flammable materials such as gas or fuel. If the huge bucket breaks or its container explodes, the residents of that area must abandon their places of residence forever. Even animals and insects may not survive in that place again. It would be as if a nuclear bomb hit the city, as happened in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. Fortunately, up to the present, no such disaster has been reported in any city in Sudan. Only the driver and 2 workers are allowed to ride the tractor. The foreman drives the tractor, and the 2 workers fill the container with human waste such as urine and feces. They stand over the container like snipers. Their main task is to receive buckets filled with disgusting sewage of human feces and urine, which they must then pour into the container. More than 30 other workers ran behind the tractor, doing 3 different tasks. Their tasks are divided into 3 sections. 10 workers run alongside the tractor, go to human dwellings, and open toilets to remove buckets of waste. Each bucket is large and heavy, like a barrel, and in Arabic it is called a barmel, hence the name of the workers, barrel men. So, the men of Baramaylo got their name from those barrels filled with urine and feces. In some major cities, such as Khartoum and Wadi Madani, the barrel workers are called Bendia boys, and their tractors are called the night trains. A Bendia worker or Baramaylo must be male, and therefore the law does not allow any woman to do such a dangerous and disgusting act. As we mentioned, the barrels are called baramel in Arabic, and in English they mean buckets. A normal-sized man would usually not be able to lift one of these barrels, even if it were empty of urine and feces. The second group of 10 workers carry the barrels on their heads, return to the truck, and hand them over to the 2 snipers, who must pour them into the container attached to the tractor. Once the snipers empty the barrels, they throw them into the air. They never worry about where the barrel fell, or on which head it landed. Often the snipers do not empty the buckets completely. The remaining substance will be sprayed all over the ground, filling the air and space with a pungent and unpleasant odor. It is the duty of the third group of 10 Baramaylo men to collect these scattered buckets, and return them back to the toilets from which they were taken. But not all Baramaylo men in Sudan have the privilege of having a tractor, trailer, and container. In small cities and countrysides, Baramaylo men carry buckets over their heads at night, and walk a long distance to a place outside the town or village. Then, like people carrying dead bodies to funerals, they must bury human waste in large bottomless-like pits in the wilderness. Given the nature of the work of barrel men, it may be useful to understand how latrines are built in Sudan. It is a small hut or nest built on an area of 1 meter by a square meter. In each house there are 2 toilets, one for men and one for women. A small platform made of wood or concrete is made in the middle of the square. One can climb to this platform using a 2-step ladder. In the center of the platform is a small circular hole. The opening is slightly larger than a rat burrow, and slightly smaller than a rabbit hole. It is large enough to serve its purpose. Under the circle is the bucket. The Baramaylo must take out the bucket and retrieve it through a small hole specially made for it. No other human being is expected to approach those toilets and touch those buckets except Baramaylo. If anyone other than a Baramaylo man was seen near one of those women's toilets and opened its lid and saw a female's private parts, and she was naked and urinating from her pussy and defecating from her ass, the men of that house would kill him immediately and his blood would be on his shoulders. This is also one of the honor killings in Sudan, whose killer is not punished by law. Chapter 27. Our Brother Tia. Brother Tia resembles the first human, Adam, when God created him from the dust of the earth. Mr. Tia has no father, mother, wife, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, or any other relatives. He also has no friends, neighbors, or loved ones. At least for Adam, God later created his wife Eve or Hawa from his rib, but Tia did not have a wife who was created even from his head or one of his legs. He does not remember his parents, and does not even know which tribe he belongs to. While growing up, he learned some of the local languages, which added to his confusion. His mother could be an African woman, and his father an Arab man. It is also possible that she was an African woman, and the man who impregnated her was an African man, or an Arab woman with an African man. The latter combination is highly unlikely because in a disgusting racist society, such as Sudan, a union of this kind between Arab girls and African boys rarely occurs except in a fantasy tale, or daydream of a teenage black girl, or hallucination of a crazy African boy, if it happens at all. An Arab family may agree to marry its daughter to a dog, a pig, or even to the devil, but never to an African boy, as if he were an outcast in a Hindu society. With no known relatives or parents, it is difficult to discover Tia's place of birth, his family, his tribe of origin, or even how old he is. Who named him Tia? How and where was he born? His early childhood memories are dim. His memory cannot take him back to until he was 5 years old. Although he calls himself a Muslim man, Tia was never taught the principles of Islam, and never prayed in his entire life. The first social law our brother Tia learned earlier in his life is that might be right. Necessity taught him to fight for survival during his time at homelessness on the streets. With the strength of his hands, brother Tia earned his living. He beat young beggars and homeless children and stole their food, money, and anything they had, even if it was trivial and worthless. Naturally, he paid the price for that aggressive behavior. Because he was young at the time, the police would immediately arrest and flog him whenever he harmed homeless urchin boys. Other gentlemen in the community will do the same whenever they see Tia beating other beggar children. It is expected and acceptable behavior in this Islamic society for any man to slap, kick or flog any child whom he sees as not behaving properly. In that society, hitting, flogging, slapping, and kicking children is not considered child abuse. Even a husband hitting his wife, a father hammering his daughter, or a brother striking his sister is considered a type of discipline, and is permitted by the Holy Quran and supported by the sacred hadiths in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. If our brother Tia had no family or relatives, how did he come into this world and who named him Tia? To answer this question accurately, we have to go back to his childhood days. Tia found himself growing up in the streets, like a stray dog abandoned and thrown away by its owner. He escaped death and starvation in his early years by begging. When his hands and legs became strong enough, he started working as a porter carrying goods and other items for people in the main market as an unskilled laborer, just like the collie porter at the Indian railway station. He really made a little money with this challenging work. Often, the older homeless kids steal the petty cash earned by the porter Tia. Nature taught our brother Tia to fight for survival. He has learned that it is not enough to beg and work, but he must also fight those homeless boys who like to make easy money by plundering, robbing, and pickpocketing. Unfortunately, when he got a little older, the Tia boy also learned some unpleasant habits. He was not guided by any code of morals, and he did not have any religious education. In practical terms, he is neither a Muslim nor a Christian nor even an African animist. He is not a religious person at all. Until he became an adult, he did not even know the meaning of God's word. Later in life, he discovered that belonging to a religion was an important social status, and he has since claimed to be a Muslim. However, no one can remain a child forever. Our brother Tia did not live in Neverland, where children stay forever young and fly like birds in the air without wings like Peter Pan and his friends. So, against his will, Tia grew up and reached the next stage of his life. As the existentialist said, he was thrown into the world and asked to make a man out of himself. Because he lacked any moral education, he turned into a criminal. He began adulthood by stealing, looting, pickpocketing, and deceiving people. Later, he was also involved in breaking into people's homes at night and armed robbery. His commission of armed robbery put him in serious trouble with the law. One night, the police ambushed him in a dark, deserted valley near the prostitution huts of Bint al-Zabir Pasha and arrested him. Our brother Tia has been arrested several times before for smaller crimes. In each case, he spent a period in prison for a few months, or a year at most. Sometimes, he was also flogged for stealing small and trivial items. When he was arrested for armed robbery, the judge of the criminal court in Al-Fashir city took his case seriously and sentenced him to a long confinement. Those 14 years he spent in prison ended up being the best years of his life. Our brother Tia was sent to Chella Central Prison in Nyala City. The central government in Khartoum established Chella Prison to get rid of notorious criminals who had escaped the death penalty, or rival politicians who had caused problems for its lifelong rule. Most governments in Islamic, Arab, and African countries remain in power if they can control their rival politicians. Chella Prison was created to punish and get rid of bad citizens like Brother Tia. When he appeared before the Al-Fashir criminal court judge, he was tried as an adult, even though he was just a minor teenager. He always remembers those moments while standing before the criminal judge. "What is your name?" the judge asked harshly. "I have no name, sir," our brother Tia answered truthfully. The judge frowned. "How can you not have a name? Even dogs and cats in this country have been named." The underage boy, who had no home, no family, and no name, swallowed the insult hard. "Your Honor, some people call me the son of Satan and others call me Wad al-Haram, that is, the foundling child, and I do not like either name." The judge looked at him for a while and said, "From today on, your name is Tia." The judge gave him this name because it reminded him of a notorious criminal by that name, who had been sentenced to death by hanging a few years earlier. That deceased criminal looked like Tia's twin. In this way, Brother Tia got his official first name. "How old are you?" the judge continued his questioning. The wretched teen shrugged his shoulders. He did not know how to answer, because he did not have a birth certificate to present to the judge to convince him that he was still a minor. After a moment of thought, he replied, "I don't know how old I am, sir." The judge slammed his gavel on the table and spoke his last words. "I sentence you to 14 years in Chella Prison with hard labor." Tia was surprised and shocked, because this was the maximum punishment he could get for his crime. He did not know that the judge preferred to execute him, but his crime did not deserve the death penalty. Only murderers, rival politicians, Muslim apostates, and adulterers can be sentenced to death, hanged, or stoned in the Islamic country. Instead, the judge sent him to Chella Prison like some other unlucky inmates, where he hoped our brother Tia would die before even half of his 14-year sentence had been completed. Chella is not even a prison. It is a heavily guarded area where the worst criminals are kept. It has no wards, rooms, or cells. It has no roofs but has high wire fences that are electrified so not even ants can climb them. No god, no devil, no goblin, no genie can cross it and escape alive. Prisoners do not have roofs over their heads and have to protect themselves in one way or another from the rays and heat of the scorching African sun. They use their own clothing to protect their heads from the heat during the day and the cold during the night. They eat only one meal a day made of bread, boiled eggs, and fava beans. In addition, they have to keep themselves protected from scorpions and snakes. Flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, bugs, ticks, and lice are the least of the many problems they face every day and every night. During the heavy rainy season, prisoners are forced to use prison uniforms as umbrellas. All these hardships are nothing compared to the human beasts that Brother Tia has to fight with to survive in Chella Prison. If a prisoner cannot fight for his food, he will starve to death. Once again, the law of nature, survival of the fittest, is the only law applicable to life in Chella Central Prison. A person might survive a fight against an experienced gladiator in a Roman Colosseum, but not in a Shala. He might also conquer hungry lions in Flavian's Roman amphitheater, but not in that notorious Sudanese prison. Despite the dangers and hardships of this death camp, our brother Tia is naturally gifted with a strong, muscular body. Every inch of his short body is covered in muscle, even his cheeks, lips, nose, and ears are muscular. Many notorious criminals tried to kill or defeat the prisoner Tia in his first few days in Chella Penitentiary, but they were unable to do so. Within an abbreviated time, our brother Tia earned the title of Indestructible Man. With the strength of his muscles, he was able to remain in that prison of death until he completed 14 years. Those long years taught him a lesson that he never forgot, which is why they are the best years of his life. Whatever happens to him, Mr. Tia has vowed never to return to Chella prison again. So, when he was finally released from the detention of that bottomless pit of hellish life, he began looking for a legitimate way to earn his living. Because our dear brother Tia has no education or work experience and is illiterate and ignorant, no one was willing to hire him. In addition, people can see the traces of his criminal life written on his face. When all possible doors to earning a lawful livelihood were closed in his face, our brother Tia decided to become a Baramilo man, and he got hired at the spot. Chapter 28. The billion-pound golden opportunity for the outcast man, Tia. Although our brother Mr. Tia hates his disgusting job of being a Baramilo man carrying every night heavy barrels full of human urine and feces on his bald head, he has no other alternatives. It's been a year since he became Baramilo. Within this year, he mastered his work well and got used to it. It didn't take long for the former criminal who repented and became Baramilo to lose his sense of smell. His coworkers also warned him that the job put him at risk of developing a chronic disease such as lung cancer. So far, our brother Tia has remained healthy. His years in the notorious Chella prison may have given him immunity to all kinds of diseases. Mr. Tia has no social life outside of his work, and it is the only time of day he can socialize with other humans without being shunned. Now people not only fear him as a dangerous criminal, but also avoid communicating with him because of the stench that follows him like a shadow wherever he goes. In humans, the Baramilo resembles a skunk among animals which has the ability to spray a liquid with a strong unpleasant odor. No soap, perfume, or disinfectant can get rid of that unpleasant nasty smell. Our brother Tia has never had a wife or a girlfriend, and it is unlikely that he will have one now or in the future. He has no friends or neighbors, as if he lives on an island with no inhabitants. Tia built his hut with his own hands. He collected wood, broken boxes, grass, metal, and other scraps to set up his own shelter. His small hut has no fence, door, or windows. It is just a roof without walls, and this is much better than the dorms Les Chella prison. His hut rests on two pillars in the shape of a cross. Mr. Tia cannot keep a dog to guard his hut in his absence. He is very afraid that the dog will eat him out of hunger. His hut is located at the end of town. He is like a person isolated by society due to an infectious plague. Mr. Tia and other outcasts live outside the prostitution and slavery camps of Bint al-Zubair Pasha. Unbelievably, even the prostitutes refuse to allow him access to their bodies, even though he was willing to pay twice what they asked of their customers. One bold bitch went down the register when she told him to his face that she would rather sleep with the devil than with a man like him. When he asked her why she did not want to allow him to have sex with her by paying many times the price of her pussy, the bold slut said to him on his face, "Because you are uglier than a pig and filthier than a stray dog that is scabby, rabid, and full of rabies. Moreover, since you are Baramilo, your dirty body has a stench worse than that of a skunk." From that day on, the bitches called him Abu Alafin, and whenever he came, they expelled him, beat him by sticks, and chased him away with their voracious dogs like an outcast or a wild beast. At any rate, our dear brother Tia's work starts at 10 p.m. It ends at 5 a.m. When people go to work, our friend Tia comes home. He adapted to making a living at any time of the day during his childhood and followed the same life path in his bad days of looting and armed robbery. Because he always earned his living at night and slept during the day, some of his street acquaintances in his youth called him the child of Satan and the son of a bitch. Naturally, the criminal judge who sent him to Cella prison changed this bad name, and when Tia got out of the maximum security penitentiary, he decided to keep his new name. But his name is his first and last name. The outcast man Tia has no way to entertain himself. He does not have a mobile phone, television, radio, or recording device. If someone had told him that the computer was the name of a new prophet who appeared in America, he would have believed him. Imagine then his astonishment at the chain of events that began in his life one day. On that historic day, as our brother Tia was returning home from his night shift, he saw a young couple standing in front of his small hut. At first, he either thought that the couple were strangers in the city who had lost their way, or that he had lost his senses and started imagining things that were not real. He slapped his stony face to make sure he wasn't imagining the face of the pretty girl who was smiling at him. No one had ever shown affection to Tia before. For the first time he was recognized as a human being who, like everyone else, had a heart that could respond to tenderness and social sentiment. He gestured with his hand in response to the beautiful girl's charming smile. "You're welcome, dear brother," the sweet girl said, still smiling. Then she offered her hand to Mr. Tia. The Baramailo man did not reply, but extended his rough hand and took the girl's delicate and soft hand. "My name is Olivia, and this is my husband, Malwell," the girl said, pointing to the handsome man next to her. His throat was dry as he answered, "My name is Tia." "We are visitors," continued Olivia, her charming smile still gracing her pretty lips. "Our brother Tia does not know what a person should do with his visitors, because no human being has ever visited him before. I don't think even Satan or any of his demons have ever visited him before. Naturally, neither a thief by day nor a burglar by night would dare to come to such a desolate hut. If they do that, they will find something of value to steal and sell." So, our brother Tia kept staring at his unwanted guests. The beautiful Azanda girl lightened the awkwardness of the moment by saying, "Can we go into your hut?" Master Tia nodded his big bald head, which was like a huge dalaba, or the large mango of slaves, in agreement, and led the way to his little cave. Since he did not have a chair or bed, he sat on the dusty floor, and asked his two guests to sit on the ground as well. Why are these people here? He asked himself silently. He soon found out. "We have come to offer you a great golden opportunity," Olivia said. The expression on his face revealed to the beautiful girl that he did not understand what she said to him. She rephrased her words. "I meant to say we came to offer you a deal." "What's the deal?" Mr. Tia answered fearfully. While in prison, he learned that the word deal meant killing for someone else and getting paid for it. If this is what they came to offer him, Mr. Tia has no desire to return to Cella concentration death camp again. He would rather starve to death in the streets like a vagabond than return to a death bottomless pit. "It's not a bad deal," Malwell said, speaking for the first time. Olivia nodded in agreement. "Yes, my husband is right, it's not a bad deal. We are good citizens like you." Our brother Tia is still skeptical and unsure. He asked them, "What is your deal then?" Olivia continued her explanation. "We saw you somewhere in town, and we knew you were a hard-working person. Therefore, we would love to help you earn some extra cash if you agree to do a little work for us." "What's your work?" Mr. Tia asked, becoming less afraid and more curious. "And how much money will I get paid if I do this job for you?" "We will pay you 1 billion Sudanese pounds, said the handsome husband. "Your wages will be in cash," said the beautiful wife. Even if Mr. Tia had to continue working as a Baramailo man for the rest of his life, he would not receive 1% of this huge sum. With £1 billion, he could be reborn as another human being in a different life and in a higher caste. With this money he can quit his dirty work, immigrate to another city, start a new clean life, marry a woman, have children, and when he dies, his sons and daughters can carry his name with pride. This is like the story of the hasty man who built castles in the air before selling his bottle of ghee. After building all these illusions in his imagination, the hasty man thought that his unsold bottle was the rebellious son he had not yet had, and instead of the bad son, he hit the bottle with his stick and spilled the ghee. On that day, our brother Tia went through the same stages, but fortunately, he did not have a stick in his hand to hit one of his unexpected visitors. "If your deal won't get me in trouble with the police, I'm willing to accept it," Mr. Tia said, after a long silence. "I swear by the blindness of my both eyes, our deal has nothing to do with the police or crime," said Olivia, placing 2 fingers of her right hand near her beautiful eyes. "We came to you because no one else can do the job." "Why only me?" Brother Tia's little red eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Because your work as a Brahmilo man gives you a golden opportunity to earn 1 billion Sudanese pounds overnight," Mawul said with a smile. In the end, sweet wife Olivia explained in detail what Mr. Tia had to do for her and her beloved husband Mawul, and the Brahmilo man gladly accepted the golden deal of a lifetime. Chapter 29. A dangerous mission in the taboo section of women's toilet. The Brahmilo man Tia couldn't sleep that day and stayed awake all night long until his next shift. During his waiting hours, he built many castles and more impossible plans. He decided to leave his dirty work as soon as he obtained 1 billion pounds in cash, immigrate to the eastern region of Sudan, and settle in a beautiful city called Kassala. During the years he spent in the notorious Chella prison, he heard a lot about that city. He was told that Kassala is the most famous tourist in Sudan, known for the beauty of its nature and its women. The women are exceptionally beautiful because the people of Kassala are mixed races of Arabs, Ethiopians, Eritreans, and Beja tribes. The Beja tribes are those people whom foreigners call people fuzzy-wuzzy human creatures. This name resulted from the hair on their heads that grow like bushes of forest herbs. There is a famous saying, "The people of Kassala are good people." If someone drinks the water of the Totil spring in the Taka Mountains, he will return to Kassala again. Almost every singer in Sudan sang a song in honor of the beauty of the girls of Kassala and nature. So, if our brother Tia goes to that famous city with 1 billion Sudanese pounds in his possession, which is like £1 to British sterling, he can make a fresh start. With these high dreams and considerable expectations, the lucky man left his hut 2 hours earlier than usual. He felt luckier than the poor, miserable Sudanese man who won the American visa lottery. He waited for another hour under the shadow of a nyama tree for the tractor driver and other Brahmilo workers to arrive. Every now and then, he put his hand in his pocket and touched the little thing Olivia had given him. He had never seen such a thing before. The 2 friends had to assure him 10 times that it was nothing harmful before he was finally convinced to take it. It had been 14 hours since they had given it to him. From then on, repeatedly, his hand went inside his pocket and touched the little thing to make sure it was still there and had not been snatched away by some pickpocket thugs. This little precious thing represents 1 billion excellent opportunities for Mr. Tia. His job is to deliver it somewhere and wait for a response. If he succeeds in delivering it and getting a response, only then can he get the money. Failure to do so means that he will remain a Brahmilo man for the rest of his life, and when he dies like the stray scabby dog he may or may not be buried in a grave. If he does not have a funeral or a proper burial, his body will be eaten by earthworms and eagles in the sky. He may also be cremated in ashes by municipal workers, just like a Hindu outcast man. They might drag his corpse out with their garbage truck and throw it into the wilderness, like the carcass of a pet abandoned by its owner, and left as a stray until it died in one of the city's deserted alleys. However, Mr. Tia touched his pocket 1 million times before the other Brahmilo men showed up. For the first time, his coworkers saw a hint of happiness on his serious face. For no specific reason, all his colleagues detest him and hate to see his ugly face. From day one, all his coworkers hated him and strove to get rid of him. The supervisor, usually the tractor driver, assigned him the maximum amount of arduous work and conspired with other workers to make things difficult for him. However, Brother Tia did not complain or leave the dirty, unenviable job. It happened that day that it was his turn to be a sniper on top of the container, the most desirable task after driving a tractor. No other Baramilo can exchange his sniper position for gold or silver. Who wants to run through the streets for 8 hours at night carrying heavy barrels full of urine and feces on his heads and chasing a speeding tractor? Besides, the sniper might at least be able to see people's homes, and if he had sharp vision, he might see a beautiful girl sleeping with her sexy body semi-naked somewhere in her backyard, or a husband having sex with his sexy, completely naked wife in the early hours of the day. However, today, our Brother Tia surprised everyone when he refused his turn as a sniper and was ready to run after the tractor. Not only is it for one day, but he is willing to give his sniper position to anyone for a week. The supervisor must cast lots or choose the lucky man at random. The winner happens to be Tia's worst enemy. The superintendent took Tia aside and consulted with him whether he was still willing to give his sniper turn to his archenemy Mr. Coco, for whom he bore an intense and deep hatred. Mr. Tia told his supervisor that he didn't mind, even if the chosen person was Satan himself. The overseer was astonished at this unexpected generosity, and in his puzzled mind he wondered whether the ugly man Tia had changed in his heart from a demon of darkness to an angel of light. Our Brother Tia started his work with great energy and a happy heart. At the same time, he was singing a vulgar song. This song is banned throughout Sudan, and anyone caught by the correctional police singing it will go to prison and receive more than 50 lashes on their bare bottom. It is the favorite song of drunks, thugs, criminals, and prostitutes. I look at her and laugh and laugh. I ran away from her and came back to her. I measure her small mouth with magic beads, and I cast farewell and pray. The beads reveal mystery to me. I can see her large breasts, and I love to fuck her big ass, screw her little pussy, and enjoy her sexy body with my huge dick. But this sexy girl, a man like me, whose dear ran away, will never be able to have her and fuck her pussy and her ass by my large cock. It is worth mentioning again that this is the favorite song of scammers and thugs in Sudan. It is officially banned throughout the country, and anyone caught singing it is punished with 6 months imprisonment and 53 lashes on the bare buttocks and back. That day, our friend Tia was seen by other Baramilo guys approaching the private toilets, opening the little lids, grabbing the heavy buckets, carrying them on his big bald square head, running after the tractor, and passing them to the snipers. He does more than he is supposed to do. His duty is to open the lid, take out the bucket full of urine and feces, and leave it for the second men to carry and deliver to the snipers. But that night, our dear friend Mr. Tia was overly excited, so he went the extra mile and went beyond what he had to do. He acts as if he expects to die soon, and goes to his grave with honorable deeds to atone for the many sins he committed before landing in the hell of the notorious Chela prison. He does not want to be a victim of the torment of the angels of the grave, Munkar and Nicaea, and the bald-headed serpent who bites Muslim sinners in their graves. After 5 hours of continuous work, our dear Brother Tia finally arrived at the intended home. Police officers and fierce police dogs heavily guard the house. More than 20 heavily armed policemen and 6 voracious dogs surrounded the house. The Baramilo Tia man suddenly understood why the pay for the task was so high, and why the beautiful couple Olivia and Malwell couldn't do the duty themselves and found someone else to take the risk and do it for them. What he cannot understand is why the person to whom the small thing must be delivered cannot go out and collect it from him himself. As was his daily work routine, Tia approached the house and continued performing his dirty task. The police saw him and ignored him. Each of them put his fingers in his nose to protect his lungs from the deadly foul-smelling epidemic. Even the police dogs kept themselves out of his way. He bent over the men's toilet, lifted the lid, took out the bucket, ran after the tractor, and handed it to one of the two snipers to scatter in the container. After that, he quickly returned to the women's toilet and flipped the lid on. At this point, his speed decreased dramatically. While his left hand was flipping the cover, his right hand reached into his pocket and took out the small item that weighed less and was more expensive. Then his right hand walked under the small door until it reached the small circle. Like a cat feeling its way in the dark, his hand reached beyond the small circle and dropped the small object into the interior of the women's restroom. At that critical moment, for the first time in the long history of Muslim families, the sanctity of the harem was violated, and the inner and outer spaces of the women's toilet were connected. Fortunately, there is no naked at that critical moment inside the women's restroom. Otherwise, if there was someone, she would have screamed and asked for help because someone touched her pussy or ass and got our brother Tia slain in an honor killing. Meanwhile, Baramilo's lucky man, our friend Tia, is on the knees until the little thing lands in the secret world of a zone that is forbidden for any man to access, even if he is a husband or a father. His first mission was completed successfully when the precious little thing reached the taboo section, which no creature with a penis is allowed to enter, even if it is a dog. Chapter 30. About being a slave woman and a totem animal in an Islamic household. A strange man like Brother Tia might have been likely to enter the Holy of Holies of the temple and not be killed, but he could not survive if he entered the women's taboo section of the holy residence of an honorable Maulana of a mosque in a Muslim country. The sacred residence of such a virtuous man, who is the Imam of the Grand Mosque, has a forbidden section that considers to be taboo by the Quranic divine revelation and confirmed by the sacred Sunnah inspired by God to his beloved Prophet Muhammad. The females who live there are like totem animals. No human being can enter this forbidden section if he is not the man of the house himself or the wife's relatives, such as a father or brother. Even her in-laws are not allowed to approach that taboo women's section. The Prophet Muhammad said that a wife's family, such as her father-in-law or her brother-in-law, pose a danger to her, such as death. Therefore, there is no other way to reach the forbidden taboo section except through the small opening that our brother Tia used to pass the small object, which now sits waiting to be noticed. Because he is from the Baramilo group, or the Sons of Bendi, he was able to reach the women's section, which was cordoned off and isolated from the rest of the sacred house. The totem animal who happened to see the small, smuggled object and pick it up is a beautiful teenage girl of blossoming age. She is the same girl whose sad situation led the Shamash's public to turn the city upside down recently as a result of the Sharia court's recent decision that upheld the legalization of slavery, which Islam permits in the Holy Quran and the Prophet's sacred hadiths to this day. Her name is Ikhlas, meaning devotion, loyalty, and obedience. Since the day she was stolen from her village in South Sudan, brought to the western region of Darfur province and sold as a slave, her mind has never known peace. For 14 months she suffered every kind of abuse, rape, torture, suffering, slavery, and sexual humiliation. The worst period was the time she spent in the brothels in the huts of Bint al-Zubair Pasha. While in those notorious brothels and bars, she was tied with ropes, beaten with whips, circumcised, genital mutilated, and gang-raped. Because she is a Christian, she was not circumcised when she was a young girl with her family in the south. The evil pimp, Bint al-Shaitan Pasha, circumcised her because she decided to reduce the size of her pussy and make it just a small hole like circumcised Muslim girls. This way, she thought she could make more money by telling her lustful customers that she was a circumcised Muslim girl and not an uncircumcised Christian girl. She was raped by more than 50 men in less than a month through prostitution. The evil woman, Bint Iblis Pasha, did everything in her power to ensure that Ikhlas was tamed, destroyed her spirit, and made her an obedient slave. She used a hot nail to draw the Islamic crescent sign on her chest as a trademark, as if the Dinka girl were a product being imported for sale, just as her great-grandfather Alzubair Pasha Wad Rama used to do for slaves before sending them to the slave markets abroad. She named her Ikhlas to ensure that she would live the rest of her life loyal and obedient to her. The evil pimp, Bint al-Basha, has a habit of drawing a crescent moon tattoo on the pussy of each of the 50 prostitutes she owns as sex slaves. But there is no salvation, as she drew that tattoo with fire on her chest and pussy after her circumcision. The real name of the kidnapped Dinka girl is Ayan Majak. She is a Christian by birth. Janjaweed Muslims had raided her village and kidnapped her when she was a 16-year-old teenage girl. The evil woman, Bint al-Basha, brainwashed her and filled her heart with fear. The kidnapped Dinka girl, Ayan, was made to believe that if she tried to escape, she would either be shot by Bint al-Zubair's armed gangs or killed by their ravenous dogs. Accordingly, she accepted the fulfillment of her lot in life and remained in the prostitution and slavery camps until fate sent her to the house of Imam Abdul Razak. But the million-dollar question: how did Ikhlas move from the house of vice to the house of virtue? As a secret deal, one day, the daughter of Alzubair Pasha came to her hut and talked with her. Under the agreement, the kidnapped girl must choose between prostitution and slavery. If she accepts the new deal with all its conditions, she will move from the house of vice to the house of virtue. Her duty in that house was to serve one of the virtuous mans for wives. He is the imam of the largest mosque in El Fasher city. She will be an unpaid maid. If she finds favor in the eyes of the blessed imam, he will have sex with her. Otherwise, she will be treated with respect and given a spacious private room to sleep in. She will not be struck if she does her duty and obeys the blessed imam and his virtuous wife. Of course, Ikhlas thought that the new place would be much better than the hellish place she lived in. Before sending her, the pimp, Bint al-Zubair Pasha, told her maid, who was also one of her unpaid prostitutes, that she would return her to her brothels and taverns if she could not show sufficient loyalty to the honorable imam, his virtuous wife, and their blessed offspring. Once the Christian girl Ikhlas arrived at the imam's house, she was forced to become a Muslim against her will, and taught how to perform the obligatory 5 daily prayers, and fast 30 days in the month of Ramadan. From the beginning, the imam's wife knew that her husband was sleeping with the new slave girl at night. The fourth wife is 57 years old, while her beautiful teenage maid is 17 years old. Maulana is an old man in his late 70s. Naturally, the kidnapped Dinka girl found the new home much better than the den of prostitution and the sale of alcohol and drugs. Instead of being raped every day by more than 10 men, in her new residence, she has to have sex with one old man whose penis can only become erect by taking Viagra. She cannot think of escaping because she does not know her back to South Sudan, where she was kidnapped. In addition, she has no living relatives. She knew that the Muslim Mujahideen invaders who stole her from her home and village had slaughtered her entire family and Dinka people. Ikhlas lived in this house of virtue until she became pregnant by Maulana and gave birth to his child at the right time. The newborn is a girl, and her biological father named her Sakina. But the holy man of God refused to give her his first Muslim name Abdul Razak or his last Arabic family name Al-Mahdi because she was a slave. In the imam's house, her child is known as Sakina, the slave girl's daughter, or the Dinka girl's daughter. After the trial, the Sharia court ruled in favor of the imam, and Ikhlas officially became his Jariya, or his slave girl with whom he could have sex without a permissible Islamic marriage. This is because the Prophet of Islam Muhammad had sex with his Christian slave girl, Maria the Copt, without marriage. He had an illegitimate child or Wald Haram by her, whom he named Ibrahim. Therefore, by order of the Sharia court, Maulana can continue to enslave his Jariya and have sex with her without the need to contract a halal Islamic marriage because she is his slave. If he dies, she has no right to inherit any of his property and money, because she is not related to him by kinship or marriage. In all this, the Dinka girl was not aware of the trial until the Baramilo man, Mr. Tia, smuggled the little thing into the house through the women's toilet. The servant Ikolaz wakes up every day at 4 in the morning to perform the morning prayer. The loud voice of the muezzin calling people to prayer is her daily alarm. Maulana's house is located 1 block away from the Grand Mosque, so the girl hears the muezzin shouting 5 times a day, as if he were standing directly above her head, and calling the believers to prayer. She hears this annoying sound 5 times a day, and it regulates her daily life. Her day begins when the muezzin shouts those monotonous words into her ears. God is great, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. Come to prayer, come to the success, come to prayer, God is great, there is no God but Allah. The first thing Ikolaz was ordered to do was to do ablution to perform the morning prayer. Her religious purification begins in the toilet. When this stage is over, she must go to a clean place and perform ablution. Then she has to go and wake up Maulana's wife. By that time, the Imam has already gone to the mosque to lead the worshippers in their first prayer of the day, known as the morning or dawn prayer. After his wife also performs her religious purification, she will also lead the unpaid servant in morning prayer. After the end of the prayer, she must begin her daily work, and the virtuous wife must return to her bed and continue sleeping until the sun rises. The maid is asked to clean the dishes, sweep the entire house, then start cooking and preparing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Cooking Sudanese food is one of the most difficult cooking in the world. The kidnapped Dinka girl starts cooking an hour after the morning prayer and finishes it an hour before the noon prayer. While she cooks, she is also expected to wash clothes and make kisra or ingra, a Sudanese and Ethiopian loaf bread. It is better for a woman to be a baramila worker than a woman who makes bread kisra. The housewife or maid must spend an hour or 2 every day in a small hut, like a toilet, and cook kisra. Incidentally, by law, the baramilo must be male due to the risky nature of the job. Moreover, no woman can act as a prayer leader as an imama. By order of the Sharia, no Muslim woman is permitted to be the imam of a mosque. Sharia also forbids a woman from becoming a khalifa, or a calipha, and ruling an Islamic caliphate state. Every day, the maidservant Ikolaz exposes her entire body to the flames and smoke of burning wood, as she makes this accursed Sudanese bread called kisra. She will constantly cough, sweat profusely, and cry rivers of tears. In addition to these daily duties, she is required, 2 or 3 times a week, to massage, scrub and shave the body of the housewife, and then do the same with her husband. She must shave the wife's hair that grows on her pussy and under her armpits. The imam's body is like a wolf, with hair everywhere except his square bald head. The Dinka girl must remove some of this hair from its follicles. She must cut his long beard, trim his mustache, and shave his pubic hair. She must use something similar to glue, which is called halawa or sweetness, and extract the wife's pubic hair from its follicles. The teenage girl Ikolaz works faithfully all day as an unpaid maid, and at night as a sex slave. These are just a few things on a lengthy list that the slave Ikolaz is supposed to do in Imam Abdul Razak's house without pay. In addition to all her duties, she has to take care of her newborn baby girl, Sakina. It is Islamic law that the son or daughter of a slave is a slave by birth. So Sakina was born a slave, and she had to live and die as a slave. But that morning, the daily routine of the enslaved Dinka girl was changed by the presence of this small object in the women's toilet. At first, she thought that the imam's wife was the one who put this thing into the toilet and forgot to take it with her when she relieved herself. She has no reason to doubt her conclusion because she knows that no human being would dare enter that forbidden taboo toilet but herself as a slave and her master's virtuous wife. Our Lord the Imam himself, as a man who has a penis and not a pussy, is not allowed under any circumstances to enter that restricted area, which is only permissible for a creature with a camel between her legs to enter. Even a god, devil, or dog might be executed if seen entering a women's toilet. It is not permissible for a woman in that Muslim society to uncover her face, hands, or feet, and woe to any man who dares to enter the women's restroom and see the vagina and buttocks of a naked Muslim woman. But after a second thought, the Dinka girl began to doubt her conclusion. She is certain that the Imam's wife could never have brought a cassette tape here. All tapes in the house contain recitations of the Holy Quran by Sheikh Omar Ahmed. It is not possible for the Imam's wife to commit such an evil by inserting verses of the Holy Book into a toilet that has been impure with the urine and feces of women who are deficient in religion and reason. So Ikhlas concluded that the cassette had somehow been smuggled into the harem toilet by someone. Such a conclusion filled her heart with indescribable fear. She remembered that some boys loved to look at her and lusted after her sexy body whenever she went out of the house with Maulana's wife. Before she was forced to convert to Islam, she wore clothes that showed off her large buttocks and her big breasts that looked like pomegranates. But after leaving the Christian religion, she was forced to wear the abaya and hijab. So, she concluded that the cassette had most likely been sent to her by one of those boys who were staring at her sexy body like hungry wolves that had seen a lost gazelle. Therefore, her first reaction is to destroy it before the virtuous lady of the house wakes up and hits her with a whip. She does not want to be accused of having a love relationship with any boy, as this is one of the things that the blessed Imam and his virtuous wife warned her against. If anything like this were discovered, she was repeatedly told that the consequences would be dire. Therefore, Ikhlas carried the tape with her and rushed to her hut to destroy it. But when she reached her hut, her sixth sense changed her mind and forced her to listen to the content of its message. With her hands trembling, she inserted the cassette into the tape recorder and pressed the play button. "Our dear sister, Ikhlas, we heard about your problem, and we would like to help you. My name is Olivia, and my husband's name is Mawal. I am from the Azanda tribe, and my husband is Dinka. It doesn't matter what tribe we belong to, but we are Southerners like you, and we would give our lives to help a desperate girl like you who is chained in a house of slavery. If you want to escape from the evil Imam's house, we are ready to help you. We have learned of your sad story through the trial at the Sharia court, and we want to free you from slavery. This cassette was sent to you by a dear friend of ours who is a Baramilo man. You can please send us your response by recording audio on the same cassette, or by handwriting a message. Our Baramilo friend visits the toilet every night, or in the early hours of the morning to perform his duty. You can throw the cassette or your written message through the small circle into the toilet and Baramilo man Mr. Tia will pick it up when he sees it. It truly pains us to know that a sister from south of Sudan lives as a slave, and no one is willing to save her from her master and rapist, the evil Imam Abdul Razak. The plan worked well and our brother Tia received the response message 2 days later in the form of simple recorded words, with the same cassette, and a written message containing the same voice message. The letter and tape contained brief messages written and spoken by the kidnapped Dinka girl, Ikhlas, herself. I am an orphaned girl with no parents or any living relatives. The Muslim Mujahideen Janjaweed invaded my village in South Sudan, killed my father and brothers in front of my eyes, and forcibly brought me to this area. First, I was sold as a slave to a bad woman who made me a maid and a prostitute. Then she sent me to the house of the Imam of the mosque. The Imam and his wife made me their maid during the day and sex slave at night. Imam Maulana Abdul Razak slept with me and impregnated me without marrying me. I gave birth to his child without the sanctity of the halal Islamic marriage bond, and became his sex slave, and the mother of his little girl. However, he did not marry me or release me. I have no home, family, relatives, or anyone else in Sudan to take care of me. I appreciate your willingness to help me escape, but I cannot leave my shelter and wander aimlessly through the streets. I have an infant daughter. If you can provide me with a safe shelter or a permanent home for me and my daughter Sakina, after I leave, I am ready to escape from the Imam's house of slavery. Once again, I appreciate your love and concern for me and my baby girl. Your southern sister, Ikalaz. The two friends, Olivia and Malwal, did not expect the conditions set by the Dinka girl, Ikalaz, to help her escape from the house of slavery with her infant daughter, Sakina. They are willing to do anything to help her escape, but they never think for a moment that they will have to help her find shelter and permanent housing. They thought that she might ask them to help her travel to southern Sudan, to her Dinka people, or to any other city in Sudan, and meet her southern family from where she was kidnapped. In a country where almost everyone is homeless and living on the streets, or living in temporary shelter, it would be impossible to help find permanent housing for the Dinka mother and her baby daughter who was raped by the evil Imam, whose adultery was justified by the Sharia court and whose victim was considered a permanent sex slave under his slavery. Furthermore, Sudan is one of the Muslim world countries whose citizens have become refugees in their homeland like Syria and Iraq. Thousands of Southerners and residents of Darfur and the Nuba Mountains have become refugees and live in refugee camps in Sudan and Chad. Thus, her condition made the two friends helpless, and thus, they dropped the idea of helping her escape from the adulterous Imam's house of slavery and continued searching for the missing bride, the Dinka girl, Ayan Majok, elsewhere. Unfortunately, the two lovers, Malwal and Olivia, do not know that the enslaved slave girl, Ikalaz, is the kidnapped bride, Ayan herself, for whom they did not leave a stone unturned during their search for her. When Malwal asked the crippled southern man who took him to the African Lakunda Hotel how long the slave girl had spent in the house of slavery, the Dinka man answered 10 years. This is one of the serious problems in social life in Sudan. If you ask someone anything, he or she will give you their answer even if they don't know it. Everyone claims to know everything, even if he is an ignorant Muslim or an illiterate Muslima and did not go to school. Every Sudanese behaves as if he is a university professor with a doctorate, or he is an omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient as God Almighty. But in reality, everyone is jack of all trades, master of none. So, the southern lame man created his answer from the invention of the daughters of his brain that led Malwal astray. For this reason, the American groom concluded that the enslaved girl, Ikalaz, who spent 10 years chained in the house of slavery, could not be his missing Dinka bride, Ayan, who was kidnapped by the Muslim invaders from her village Tawila in south of Sudan about a year and a half ago.